Hey guys, so in today's video, this is going to be a quick recap of the Netflix trade I had taken earlier today. This was a 1.5K trade. I made about 25% net ROI. In this whole video, I'm going to go pretty much through my entire reasoning behind this trade, why I got in, why I was watching it in the first place, and why I got out. I'm also going to go over a little bit about stop losses, which is a pretty interesting topic. And yeah, so sit back, watch, and let's get right into it. So Netflix, this is the ticker I was watching, and the reason why I was even watching it, a lot of my strategy comes from finding relative outperformers. And the whole day today, Netflix was very strong. While Netflix was pushing new highs, SPY was basically pushing new lows and pretty much trading sideways. So a lot of my strategy comes from looking for relative names because these are the names that give me my edge, right? I think stock selection is the biggest factor for my profitability, personally trading my strategy. And that is why I was watching it, because it was just overall very strong, right? So I was watching for the long side continuation and larger picture, right? So I'm seeing on an intraday time frame that it's strong, right? Now I jump to a larger picture and try to get an understanding of what's happening here. What I notice, and just excuse all the drawings here, but there is a very heavy demand at this 275, right? So there's a very heavy demand to 275 that we aggressively bounced off of, right? You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically 6 different touches off this level. This is a very strong resistance area, turn into demand, turn back into resistance, now back into a demand zone that we came back in and aggressively bounced off of this week. So I'm seeing that in a larger picture, on a larger time frame, the 4-hour. On the hourly time frame, I'm noticing that we have a beautiful break and retest coming in on the hourly, right? You can see here that we have this 291 or really 290.4 level. That is a very, very key resistance. And on the 5-minute time frame, we are coming into that level around 12 o'clock. And we sort of reject off of it once, twice, and then finally get that break above that high. And if I go back to my actual entries, you'll see here that I entered around 12:06, right? So just after noon. And I entered 39 contracts. I actually placed 40 contracts, 1.55, but only 39 got filled. So one was left as a pending order. So I got it filled in 39 at 1.55, and my first sell was about 30 minutes afterwards. And my last sell was just before market close. So going back to the chart, you'll see that we get this break and retest, right? And this is what a lot of my strategy is based upon, is looking for those break and retests, right? So one, we have obviously a very strong name, right? So this is a very strong name. So one, relative outperformer, right? It's showing strength. And then two, look for the break and retest, right? So in this case, the clear break and retest was above high of day, right? Not only is it high of day at this point around 12, 11 o'clock, it was also the hourly level, right? The same hourly level we were watching before, right? The same little hourly pivot. This is both the same level, right? Lining up to the same zone. It's high of day, and it's that little hourly level. So where did I actually get in the trade? Well, what I usually do in taking break and retests is I'll wait for it to close the 5-minute candle above that level, right? In this case, 90.4, and then I'll look to long that next pullback. So if you go back to my entries, right, 12:06 was the first entry, and go to 12:06 to see where that actually was on the chart, you see this was just about here, right? So normally when taking break and retests, I look for a big strong move and continuation, and then I'll take that next candle, the next pullback. So around 12:06 is where I entered here. The bottom of this wick, the bottom of this candle was simply just a break of a key level and a retest, looking for a move higher. And so now that I'm in the trade, now that I'm fully in, I'm in 39 contracts, where am I looking to scale out now that I'm in the trade? Well, what I typically would do is I'll turn on my EMAs. That's the first thing. And I'll usually will use the 5 EMA as my guide to stay in the trade. In this case, you'll notice something. If I go back to here, you'll see 12:36 was my first sell. And if I go to 12:36, you'll see that's just about here, right? Just about this candle here. And the reason why I sold was because I saw that we were failing the 5 EMA on the 5-minute time frame. And a lot of my strategies is looking for continuation. And if we fail that 5 EMA in the 5-minute time frame, that's usually about where I look to scale out. And not only was it the 5 EMA in the 5-minute time frame, it was also that we were failing the previous high of day, right? So for me, scaling out into the new high of day, that's about where I wanted to be. It was okay. So I took about 24 contracts off. And I was mostly out of the position in a small profit, right? So 1.55 to 1.81 times 24 contracts. So it was already up a couple $100. And this is a lot of what I do is I'll scale out into green, right? So I'm looking for a higher day push. I get that higher day push. I'm out the majority of my contracts. In this case, I like the stock a lot. I like the setup a lot. So I held many more contracts, and also because I had a further out expiration, so I was okay holding. And my idea now was basically to look for a push into the next hourly level. Next hourly level was this basically 295, 296 level, right? So that was my idea, was to save these other contracts for a push into that previous high of day. Now, where would I stop out if the trade went south? And that's really important, because on a day like today where SPY was dumping and seeing these crazy red candles, that's important, right? Understanding where you're going to be taking profit, or where you're going to be stopping out. In this case, I used two different levels lining up into the same zone. How I create my stop loss orders are based upon confluences, right? So this is, some people do it, but for me, I will look for a stop loss to be a confluence, right? So you have two different areas lining up into the same zone. In this case, we have a level here at 289, right? It's a psychological level. It's also an intraday level, right? You can see here that we wicked off of it, right? We wicked off it once, twice, three times. And it's also a level from the day prior, right? It's also a break and retest from the day prior. So I understood that this was a level where if we broke it, I no longer would want to be in the trade, and I would see a potential reversal of this whole move. So if we broke that level, I would be out. And the next thing I noticed was that if I did an intraday fib, right, a Fibonacci retracement from both the high, from the low to the high, I noticed that that same level lined up with almost the exact 38.2% retracement. So in this case, I felt very confident being in this position. As long as this sort of 289 held, as long as 289 held, I was very confident holding the trade, especially because I had next week contracts. I was basically under the understanding that we would get a push into the next previous day high, right? And that's sort of what happened. We got a push down to around 289.30, 289.25, and then we wicked off of it on high volume and got that push all the way up until my trim point, which was the previous high of day, which is about 295.5. And you can see here, my last sell was at basically 3:59 p.m., a minute before market close, which is also exactly at the previous high of day. So this is overall what I think a good trade looks like. It's a very well calculated trade where you have a clear stop loss, you have a reason to be getting in, a reason to be getting out, and you also have an understanding of where you're going to be stopping out if the trade goes south. Because if we gave up this level here, that is where I would have been stopping out, right? So hopefully this helps you. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. I will